This court is again in session.
Please be seated. We're back on the record in case number DV10-01877, McDowell versus McDowell. The record will reflect that counsel and the parties are present. Ms. Looney, your next witness?
It's Vicky DiMambrio. DiMambrio. I'm having a really hard time with her name. I'm going to get better with it today, I hope. Why don't you hand it to me if you need it for professional purposes? I'll hand it to you, but I think most of it's needs to
Please watch your step. Face the court clerk. Remain standing for swearing in, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
Please be seated. Go ahead, Ms. Looney.
Can you say your full name for the record?
Vicky DiMambrio.
Okay. And Ms. DiMambro, can you tell me where you're currently employed?
I have my own corporation, Pyramid Business Services.
Okay. And what do you do at Pyramid Business Services?
Primarily bookkeeping.
Okay. And do you know Tonya McDowell?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know Tonya McDowell?
I am the bookkeeper for Rivendell and Rohan Ranch.
And how long have you been the bookkeeper for Rivendell and Rohan Ranch?
Approximately since July or August 2009.
Okay. And can you tell me what qualifications do you have in order to do bookkeeping for any business?
I have over 25 years of bookkeeping experience. I have a certification. I'm a certified professional bookkeeper, and I'm also a certified QuickBooks Pro advisor.
Okay. So you've been doing books since 2009, correct, for Rivendell and Rohan Ranch?
For Rivendell, Rohan started later.
Okay. And what do you think in your knowledge of Mrs. McDowell and your handling of the books, who between the two of you probably has a better understanding of the books?
Probably me. I think that she probably has the overall picture, but the day-to-day numbers, it's a lot of paperwork comes to me.
Okay. And when she hired you, was there any discussion about any concerns or specific things she wanted you to be careful with in dealing with the books?
What she told me, and this was made very clear, that because of things that had happened in the past, she wanted honesty and transparency, and she wanted to find ways to put procedures in place that would make that happen.
Okay. And is that what happened? Did you put procedures in place for that?
Yes, but it's ongoing. There's always things you can improve on.
And how is it that you get the records in order, like the receipts and things like that, in order for bookkeeping to occur?
Sometimes it's mailed to me, sometimes it's hand delivered, but it's usually a box of paperwork with expense forms attached with receipts behind it. And it will say who it's for, what it's for, the amount, the date. And sometimes it's not totally clear, so I question those.
Okay. Is there anything specifically since 2009 to present that Mrs. McDowell has done that would make you question or give you cause of concern for her books with this business?
No.
Let me ask you, starting originally, how often do you review the books and what's going on with the bookkeeping with Mrs. McDowell?
I review them with her whenever possible because, like I said, there's some transactions I just cannot clearly identify. And if I cannot clearly identify them, I will put them on a holding account till we have time to sit together. I can ask questions and we can pull the paperwork and clarify.
Okay. And how often does it occur that the two of you sit down together?
Ideally, we try once a month. It depends on both of our schedules.
Okay. In 2009, up until the parties separated, where did those meetings occur as a general rule?
Normally, they would take place at the Golden Eagle House.
Okay. And is that where Mrs. McDowell was residing?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, was anyone else residing there?
Keith McDowell was residing there.
And during the times that you would be there going over the books with Tonya, was Mr. McDowell ever present?
Sometimes he was.
Okay. And just to be clear, did he sit down and go over the books with you, or was he just present in the home?
He never sat down with us.
Okay. But he was around and in the house?
He was in the house, usually upstairs, but sometimes in the kitchen.
Okay. I'm going to have you look at Exhibit A8, and if the big book in front of you is letters, and the black book in front of you is numbers, if that helps.
Okay.
I think I got them right.
I'm sorry, what exhibit?
8. And you can let me know when you get it.
That's the unpaid bills detail?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And
yes.
did you prepare this?
Yes, I did.
And when did you prepare this?
This would have been March 12th of this year.
Okay. And is this a true and accurate copy of that document that you prepared for purposes of Mrs. McDowell?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is this, in preparing this, what did you use to prepare it?
I used QuickBooks.
Okay. And did you have receipts for the bills that are listed on here?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what is the process with that? Do you verify the invoice before you put it on here, or do you put it on here and then verify it?
I take the vendor invoice, and if I can show that it has not been paid, then it gets put in here as an unpaid bill.
Okay. And do you believe this is an accurate reflection of what your understanding is that's owed by the business as of March 12th, 2012?
I do.
Okay. Your Honor, I would move, this exhibit's already in, isn't it? I believe we admitted it.
Yes.
Okay. For
It's in.
Illustrative purposes, I believe.
All right. Can I have you look at Exhibit 7?
And that is the profit and loss unaudited,
Okay.
correct?
Will you explain for this court what unaudited means first off, you prepared this report,
Yes,
correct?
I did.
Okay. And when you say unaudited, what does that mean?
I do not prepare a profit and loss and hand it to someone and say, here it is, unless I know that I have verified all my numbers. In order to get this to you on time, all of the entries are made into QuickBooks except for some expenses. All of the income has been put in. It's been verified against the bank statements and reconciled to the bank statements. However, if there are some items that I could not clearly classify, and we didn't have time to finish doing that, but they were expenses. So those numbers are in here, but they are just not. To me, I'm not going to say this is a profit and loss until I am totally sure where everything goes. And I could not say that when some of the classifications are not complete. So I call that unaudited.
Okay. But this is in some indication of what's going on with the business. You just haven't completely verified 100% of everything.
Right. I do a self-audit before I release records.
Okay. And we look at Exhibit 6, and that's also a balance sheet that you have unaudited on as well.
Right. Same thing, because you're pulling your net profit or net loss from the profit and loss sheet in order to prepare a balance sheet. I could not call this unaudited unless that were true.
Okay. And have you finished your audit on these particular documents
No,
yet? Okay.
no.
And having reviewed these books, do you have some sense as to whether or not Rivendell Inc. is positive in terms of its cash flow or negative?
It's been negative for the last year. We are trying to get procedures in place to try and reduce some cost. We're trying to look at what's going on, but there has been very little income compared to the expenses to maintain these residents.
I'm going to have you look in this big book, and you can pull it down. Be careful doing it, but you can pull that down to you, and we're going to look at Exhibit M. Okay. And that's M as in man.
It's under 12.
On here, in your book. Yes. And you can let me know when you get to M. I'm going to have you go to page 4.
Okay.
And when you look at page 4, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And what is this document?
This is the profit and loss from 2010.
Okay. Did you also prepare this document?
Yes, I did.
Okay, now it does not state unaudited, so what would that tell us about this document?
At that time, I didn't know it was coming here, so I didn't write unaudited on it, but I have made entries since April 11th,
Okay.
April 2011, because I've received more paperwork. However, all the income was on this at that time because that came off the bank statements. I have received a lot more expenses that were not on this.
Okay. So it's fair to say this profit and loss sheet is accurate as to income,
Yes.
but not accurate as to maybe all the expenses?
Right.
Okay. In the year 2010, did you have a sense of whether or not Rivendell Inc. was profitable or not profitable?
What I have seen with Rivendell is any money that has been coming in has always been put back into the, I'm going to call it company, because it's more of a nonprofit basis, which is why we use nonprofit chart of accounts for this.
Okay.
I've modified it, but primarily it's a nonprofit chart of accounts. The idea was just because it was always going to be moved into a nonprofit is what I was told. So there's really been no profit other than short-term might show up.
All right. We look at page 11, and it's the little numbers at the bottom that are circled, so you know, at the same exhibit right there. And in,
2009 P&L.
yes, ma'am, it's the profit and loss for 2009. Are you on it?
Yes.
Okay. Did you also prepare this?
Yes, I did.
And would this be, in your mind, an accurate reflection of 2009?
That is accurate.
Okay. So you would say this one is audited?
This one is audited.
Okay. And in 2009, do you have any sense as to whether or not the business was profitable or not profitable?
It really never had a profit, and I mean, you can look at that and you're showing a loss of $24,000.
Do you know whether or not Mrs. McDowell has loaned money in the last year to Rivendell Inc.?
She frequently uses her own money or debit card and purchases things for the company, and I receive those and put it into a liability account for the company. And at the same time, sometimes the company pays personal, not often, but when that happens, I put that into the liability to offset it.
During the time that you've been with Rivendell Inc., did you do any calculations or keep up with amounts paid to Keith McDowell?
I did, and I'm off the top of my head, it was around $45,000. We paid rent.
That's what you believe has been paid to him in one way or another?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Ms. Mahan?
Yes. Did I hear you state that Rivendell is nonprofit or very close to being nonprofit?
No, it's a corporation for legal purposes and tax purposes. However, the way it's run is not to actually make a profit, because the goal was to form another nonprofit, which Rohan is, so that she could provide the services.
Okay. In that same exhibit book that you have in front of you, and in the same exhibit M, and are you still on page 11?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell me at the top of the page, under income, where it says rent income, $70,500.89, what is that from?
That is when her clients receive their income from either Social Security or the Guardian or wherever the source of their income comes from. They pay room and board. Now, not everybody does, because not everybody is able to. If they have no source of income, she doesn't kick them out on the streets. And there's a number of them that she provides room and board and don't have income.
Okay, so if you turn to the next page, page 12, and you look at line 8710, would that be the amount that she is paying to rent group homes?
That is the amount for the rent.
One moment. stated that Tonya lends the company money. And if we look at Exhibit 8. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on one moment. Can you tell me, in the same exhibit you're on, if you could go back to page 11, line 8540, staff development, $35,806.36. What type of things would that be for?
That would be training, that would be any special license. There's a number of things that would go in there.
Okay. And so if you could turn in that same exhibit to page 14. That would be profit and loss January to December 2008. If you look at the same line on that page, 8540, staff development's $132.13.
It's not consistent. If you have new staff, you're going to be training more. It's a timing. If you have,
But my question just was that I'm correct, it's the same category of things.
yes, it is.
Thank you. Okay, now, Exhibit 8 in defendant's book, that is the smaller black exhibit book, and that is the page that's labeled, actually, I'm sorry, yes, Exhibit 8, it's labeled unpaid bills detail.
Mm-hmm.
And you were stating a moment ago that Tonya often has to lend the company money, correct?
Yes.
And so if we look at the bottom of page 1 of this exhibit and the top of page 2, am I reading it correctly to say that in 2010, Tonya has lent Rivendell $18,200?
I think that you're confusing the two issues. This $18,000 and whatever it is, $18,200 was income that she would normally have received for her services. And she is entitled to income just like we all are. She did not take that income, but she kept track of the time just like we all do. The expenses are tracked under a liability account on the profit and loss sheet, and that is kept separately because those are actual expenses paid out for the company.
And so, do you still have, I don't know if you have the P&L in the big book we were just looking at, where I asked you about the staff development? So where on there is what you're talking about, where it would be?
It won't be on the P&L. The expenses are because they are expenses.
Mhm.
The other side of the transaction, because it has not been actually paid to her in cash or check or whatever, is going to be on the balance sheet. And
So that would be the page before page 13, correct?
that was 2000. You're on which year are you looking at?
It would actually be, I think, on page 16 in that same exhibit.
Yes.
So where is it on there is the figure that represents not wages not received by Tonya, but actual money out of her pocket? Is that the $993.53?
Yes, in 2008.
So, in 2008, these figures that are on the unpaid bills detail, Exhibit 9, strictly represent for all of these people services that they should have been paid for and have not been paid for?
Not 100%. Some of these are expenses that those people, without the backup, I'm going to say, no, I know for a fact there are a few of the smaller amounts that were for expenses that they have not been reimbursed for. However, most of this is for work done Most of it is.
Is Rivendell required to 1099 you for the services you perform?
No, I have a C corporation.
And if you go Exhibit M in the big book, which is where you already are, if you could just go to the back of it.
Back.
On the page that's marked 39 in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's circled.
Is that under section M?
Yes, close to the back of M. And there's another number, but I'm asking you to look at the circled one in the bottom right-hand corner.
Okay.
Are these, and you can look at the pages before and after if you want, are these papers that you provided to Mrs. McDowell upon her request because they were requested as part of discovery in this case?
Yes, because she already had received the actual 1099 copies. However, when we were pulling together this information, she did not have those with her at that time. I printed these up. It's the exact same numbers.
Okay. And you don't keep a copy, even a Xerox copy of the 1099s that you
I don't
prepare?
keep any client records beyond the time that I finish them because they're not my records, and it would be a liability if something happened to those records and this personal information got out. I could be held personally liable. So no, I do not keep copies, hard copies of that. That goes in her personal company files.
So if you look at what's marked 38 in the bottom right-hand corner, that appears at the top of the page to be a 1099 to Kiaha Transformance Services for $31,800.
Yes.
Correct? And so then if we compare that to the unpaid bill detail, am I correct in assuming that for the year 2010, Kiaha is owed another $16,200?
Yes, it is. It's a therapist.
It's not a licensed clinical psychologist, though.
Yes, it is.
She has a PhD in psychology. Is she a licensed clinical psychologist?
You're asking the wrong person. I just record
Fair
the
enough.
transactions.
Fair enough, I understand. If you, and so then all of these 1099s that were issued for 2010, all these figures are owed over and above what you've already paid these people?
Yes.
If you look at page 39, which is the next page, the top one, Montgomery Law Firm, do you know what that was for?
Yes, it's rent for Rohan Ranch.
And that would include the initial deposits, correct?
No. That is a deposit that is not, it's not income to them, and it's not, if you look, Montgomery Law Firm handles the transactions. Let me take that back. I am not 100% at that 8,000, I think it was, is not in there. I can't remember without going back to my records, and I don't have those here.
Okay. But, so you're not sure if the 8,000 is, because actually the initial deposit was, well, there was 8,000 and then the first month's rent was 6,000, correct?
I think, but this is going back a ways, and I don't, you're asking me to remember something. I have multiple clients. I wouldn't remember that for sure. If it was paid to Montgomery, it was for rent.
I have nothing further for Mr. Mendel.
I have nothing further to say this item, Your Honor.
Ma'am, you may step down.
Thanks.
Thank you. May the witness be excused.
Yes, she may.
Ma'am, you can go about your day. Thank you.
Give her stuff back. We're gonna call Diana Vidal. Vidal.
Should you watch your step? Remain standing, face the court clerk, please.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you state your full name for the record?
Diana Bidell?
And do you know Tonya McDowell?
I do.
How do you know Tonya McDowell?
I have worked with Tonya since mid-2007.
And what is your position as you work with Tonya?
I am her executive assistant, director of operations.
And are you considered to be an employee? In other words, you get a paycheck, or do you get a 1099 as an independent contractor at the end of the year?
I receive a 1099.
Okay. And specifically, what do you do in your position for Mrs. McDowell? What kinds of things do you do?
Primarily, I do the weekly billings for the services that we provide and render. I do the documentation that needs to be submitted to get pre-approval and pre-authorization for the services that we render. I do various miscellaneous administrative paperwork that's necessary in the day-to-day operations.
And have you been doing that since 2007?
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask you, from 2007 to 2010, have you had any knowledge as to the number of clients that have come in and out of Rivendell and Rohan Ranch?
I have the majority of the clients that come through, yes, we bill on, and so I have an idea of what we've averaged overall.
Okay. Do you know what the current number of clients is at Rivendell and Rohan Ranch?
The current number of clients that we bill on
Yes, ma'am.
is at 13
Okay.
currently.
And is that number has it been consistent over the last couple of years, or has that number altered and changed depending on the year and the time of year?
It's altered tremendously throughout the years.
Okay. And how is it altered?
It's gone down and it's gone up. Right now we are billing it a little higher than normal, but that's because we have clients that have been brought in that had no place else to go, and it's a holding for now. So that will be going down again shortly.
Okay. Let me ask you, when you and I talked, we talked about good things and bad things about Mrs. McDowell, and you told me that there was a rule that really made you feel comfortable working with Mrs. McDowell. Do you recall what that rule was?
Her policy is transparency. She wants us to make sure that what we are doing is documented and that we are doing the things that we are supposed to be doing, and that we have the ability to demonstrate that at any time.
Okay. And just to be clear, did I give you the word transparency, or was that
Oh,
a word
no.
that you gave me? Okay.
It's my word.
All right. No other questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Mahan?
When you do this work that you do for Tonya, do you have a company name or you just do it as Diana Bidell?
I have a company name,
And what is that?
Pass It On Virtual Assistant.
And I was going through my book and I missed a little part of Miss Luna's question, so I apologize for that. But when you said there are 13 clients, was that total between Crown Canyon, Rohan, and Regal?
Yes.
And how many clients are on Rohan?
As far as I know, those are the clients amongst all 3 locations.
Okay, my question was, how many clients are there right now at Rohan?
I'm not responsible for keeping track of which location they're at.
Do the clients that you bill for typically change locations? Or do they stay where they're at?
There are times we might rotate them to the ranch for a need.
Okay. Do you know how many clients are at Crown Canyon right now?
I would have to guess. We're at about 5.
Okay. And how about Regal?
I would say we're also pretty close to that 5.
I have nothing further from this witness, Your Honor.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, are you currently owed money from this company?
Yes, I am.
And how much and for how long?
It would be in the neighborhood of 12,000 plus. There are circumstances that created a tremendous downfall in cash flow just over a year ago that we're still recovering from, and she has consistently made me payments every month towards the debt.
So she's paying off the arrearages that are owed to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were the circumstances?
We had our certified employee, a certified clinical supervisor who have the credentials for our prior authorizations and our treatment, was not meeting deadlines for turning in the paperwork for the prior authorizations, and we were treating clients without prior authorization and without being able to bill because of the extensive delays that she created. And we had a period of time when our cash flow went down to 1/6 of what it would normally be during the week.
And how much of this business, what's the percentage of the Rivendell business to your total percentage of business?
To the total percentage of the Rivendell business or to my personal business?
Your personal business. How much of your personal business does Rivendell constitute?
At a guess, I would say about 35%.
So significant client.
Yes.
Okay. And if something happened to Rivendell, you wouldn't be paid back the 12 grand, is that correct?
I would have to assume not.
All right. Any questions based on the court's questions?
Yes. I'm sorry, were you addressing me or Ms. Luna?
Both.
Okay.
You first, and then we'll let Ms. Luna clean up.
The other clients that your company serves, do they do a similar type thing as Rivendell? Do they operate group homes?
No.
So what type of service do you perform for those clients?
Similar services in the administrative paperwork. What I provide for services to my clients are always based on their needs. And an example is the only other client I have similar is a hypnotherapist. And the only thing we do for her is her blog posting, her newsletters, and we are developing a teleseminar program with her. Other clients that are not similar, it's reimbursement paperwork, it's mileage paperwork, it's correspondence, reports. It's a number of things. I'm blessed with an extensive background in administrative work in various industries that I can adapt to the industries for the clients that I have.
Does the work that you do for Ms. McDowell cause you to have to go to Washington? Have you had to go there?
No.
Anything further from you?
Ms. Luna?
I don't believe I have anything additional to discuss.
Ma'am, you may step down.
Thank you.
Is the witness excused?
She's excused for me.
All right.
And we're gonna call Susanna Case next.
Ms. Case?
Remain standing. Face the court clerk, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated, ma'am.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Lona.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Susanna Case.
And Mrs. Case, how do you know Tonya McDowell?
From working with her.
And where all have you worked with her?
I worked with her 8 years ago at 24/7, and I work for her now.
And so, how do you know how long that period of time has been?
Roughly 7, 8 years.
In your dealings with her, have you ever had a sense that she was dishonest?
No.
Let me ask you, and during, I guess, the last couple of, well, let me ask you, do you have any knowledge as to the incident with Mrs. McDowell and Mrs. Giacovelli, I believe it's Giacovelli, Arlene, at 24/7?
I do.
And what is it that you know about that particular incident that you have personal knowledge about?
Well, I was working for her then, and I would mostly work with the clients. And one day I know that she was on the board because I'd see her every so often. And a few times I'd be in the office where she'd come in. And she came in a few times wanting to have meetings. And then one time she came in demanding money
And when you say she, who are you referring to?
to Arlene
Okay. And who is she demanding money
from Tonya McDowell.
Okay, and what did Mrs. McDowell tell her?
She told her no. She said, I cannot give you money because it's not my money. It's my company's money.
Okay. And did you observe any reaction from Arlene as a result of that denial?
She just made a quick comment. And she said, I'll have it one way or another,
Objection.
and walked out.
It is hearsay. The response is stricken.
Okay. Let me ask you, did you, in your personal observations of Tonya at 24/7 and at Rivendell Inc., have you ever seen her steal money from the business?
Never.
Let me ask you, have you ever loaned Mrs. McDowell money for any purpose?
I did.
And when did you?
I loaned her money right after Arlene came in and took over 24/7.
Okay, and what was your understanding on what that money was being loaned for?
To start over again because we had clients that needed to be taken care of. And again, Tonya needed to take care of her clients, so I loaned her the money. She didn't ask for it, I just loaned it to her.
And how much was it?
$15,000.
All right, and let me ask you, were those funds ever paid back?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And that's been paid back in full since then?
Yes, it has.
And have you, do you know Mr. McDowell as well?
I do.
Okay, and have you seen him at the business at Rivendell Inc. on any occasion?
At 24/7, the first business,
At Rivendell Inc.,
our now business.
the now business, yes ma'am.
I haven't.
And let me ask you, have you observed Mrs. McDowell at Rivendell Inc. with clients?
All the time.
And what would you say her demeanor is with those clients?
Guidance. She gives them guidance and helps them become independent and just whatever their needs are.
I have no further questions.
Ms. Mahan?
What is your role in Rivendell?
Now,
Yes.
I am the program supervisor
And is that here in Reno or in Washington?
here.
And did you perform work for Rivendell last year?
Yes,
And what type of work was that?
program supervisor.
And were you 1099 for that work? Did you receive a 1099? Were you paid? for
Yes,
your work?
absolutely.
And you did receive a 1099?
I did.
In the tax year 2010?
You said last year. Last year was 2011. This is 2012.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right, I probably did, I apologize. For the tax year 2011, did you receive a 1099 from Rivendell?
To get paid, yes.
And for the tax year 2010, did you?
I didn't work for her then.
So there was a gap in time, correct? Between
Yes.
when you worked with her at 24/7 and then when you came back?
Yes.
And isn't it in fact true that you came back because you needed to borrow money from her?
No. I've never borrowed money from her.
What was the reason you came back?
because I love working for her, and there was a need there. I just came back to work. I have another job. I don't need to work. It's something I chose to do.
How much time in an average week do you spend working for Rivendell?
About 30 hours.
How much do you spend at your other job?
How much time do I spend in my other job? About 30 hours. They're both part-time.
And do you consider you and Tonya to be good friends?
Yeah.
And so if Rivendell were no longer, half of your current work hours, let's say, would be gone, correct?
Yeah.
Nothing further?
Ms. Luna?
I have no additional questions, Your Honor.
Ma'am, you can step down. Thank you.
We're gonna call Debbie Mila.
Name again?
Mila.
Mila? Thank you.
Please remain standing, face the court clerk.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please be seated, ma'am.
Can you state your full name for the record?
Deborah Diane Myla.
And Miss Mila, can you tell me, do you know Tonya McDowell?
Yes.
And do you also know Keith McDowell?
Yes.
And how long have you known the parties?
Tonya McDowell since 2003. I probably was introduced to Keith McDowell during that time as well.
Okay. And how is it that you met Tonya McDowell?
We worked at the Career College of Northern Nevada in admissions.
Okay. And did you also work with her at 24/7 or have interactions with her during the time she was there?
Yes, I did. During the time that she was at 24/7, and after we both left the Career College of Northern Nevada, after she left the Career College of Northern Nevada, I worked with some of her youth, getting them into the Career College. When I left the Career College, I went into staffing and did the workforce development component by having her send her youth into me, and then I would put them through the ringer and try to find them jobs.
What about Rivendell? Do you have any involvement with Rivendell?
Currently or in the past? Currently,
Currently and in the past.
I was with 24/7 TLC for 3 months, and with Rivendell for approximately 4 years now.
Okay. And what's your position currently with Rivendell?
Currently, it's regional director, but it was curriculum and marketing.
Okay. And let me ask you, do you receive a 1099 or do you receive a regular paycheck?
I receive a 1099.
Okay. And let me ask you, at 24/7, were you ever present with Mrs. McDowell for any of the problems that happened towards the end of her employment?
Yes.
Okay. And were you present with her on the day that she went to the bank?
Yes.
And can you tell this court, was she arrested?
No.
Okay. And what was your understanding as to why she was at the bank that day?
She went to the bank to see if payroll would be covered for her employees, as she was concerned about that.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge as to whether or not she may or had a check with her on that date for purposes of putting it in the account or otherwise cashing it?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
Okay. And just to be clear, you were with her on that date?
I was absolutely with her on that day.
Okay. Let me ask you, how do you find Mrs. McDowell to be in her dealings with the business at Rivendell? And I guess specifically, have you ever observed her stealing money from Rivendell?
Never.
And did you observe her steal any money from 24/7?
Never.
Okay. And how is she in terms of as a temperament as a business owner?
She's extremely supportive of her staff. She's extremely supportive of her business partners. She loves the kids that she's working for. She has firm belief in what she does, and they love her back.
Okay. And do you have any concerns about the way she manages or runs Rivendell Inc.?
None.
Okay. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Mahan?
Isn't it true that you and Miss Rivendell are very close friends?
Yes, we are.
And do you often go out with her socially?
Yes, to discuss business usually.
Usually. About how often would you say?
It depends on if she's in town or not, but we try to do it at least once a week when she's in town.
And do you and Miss Rivendell live? Do you and Miss McDowell live together?
No.
But you did at one time, correct?
At one time, she stayed with me for about 5.5 months when she was forced to leave Park Place.
And do you have a company that works for Rivendell, or is it just you as an individual?
It's just me as an individual.
And do you work for any other companies?
I work for Rohan Ranch, and I have done work for another individual in the past.
But at this present time, you work only for Rivendell and Rohan?
And Rohan at this time, yes.
And, I'm sorry, what is your, what is it that you actually do then?
Right now, my position is a regional director, so I work with staff in staff development. I oversee how they work with the clients, and I step in as needed to work with clients.
How many clients are there right now?
I'm counting. Maybe 14.
Do you know how many are on Rohan Ranch?
Four. On and off. We use it as an workforce development.
Are you, do you have a Rivendell credit card that you're authorized to use?
Yes, it's a debit card.
And have you, in connection with your job, had to do any airline travel using the Rivendell card?
Once, yes.
What did that entail? What was that for?
It was to Spokane to go to the ranch.
And so does your current job title cause you to need to be both in Reno and in Washington? Do you go back and forth, or are you mostly here?
I'm mostly here, but it does require me to go back there from time to time.
And how do you, do you bill an hourly rate to Ms. McDowell?
I do.
And what is your hourly rate?
$18.75.
And that's all that I have for this witness hearing.
Let's talk about the time that Ms. McDowell was staying with you. Do you recall the dates that she stayed with you?
I believe it was mid-November, and it was ended.
Do you recall what year?
It was 2010 into 2011.
And why was it that she needed to stay with you?
Because she was kicked out of her home.
And where was your understanding about where she was living prior? What home was she kicked out of?
Park Place.
And was it your recollection that she was living there at that time?
Yes.
And let me ask you, does Rivendell Inc. owe you any money?
Yes.
And how much do they currently owe you?
I believe it's about $3,500.
No additional questions?
Ma'am, I have a question for you. You said you're in charge of staff development. How long have you been in charge of staff development?
Do you know, without it being an official job title It is something that I have done on and off. It's not my first responsibility. It is something that I participate in.
And how long?
Probably 3 years.
Okay. Define it for me, please.
Basically, it is teaching professionalism to staff, how to communicate effectively, how to present themselves in a more professional manner, just on that level.
And is there other staff development that new staff go through?
There is an orientation process, and there is obviously the the employment paperwork.
Aside from staff development, what else would a new staff member go through?
They shadow the individuals that hold the same position. There are conferences concerning specific instances that they may run into.
Is there any specific training that they go through?
The people that come to us are normally trained in their field currently. Our current staff has been trained in that. In the past, I don't want to say it's a policy, but kind of a general practice that Rivendell does is, because so many of our individuals are not employable outside in the workforce, we try to promote in steps from within. So there would be a process of peer mentor and training, peer mentor, and then if they want to, and they've got all the tools and the training to do so, then we will have them kind of work with the kids in the house.
All right. Thank you. Any questions based on the court's questions?
I have no questions, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused.
She may be excused.
Ma'am, you may step down and you're excused for the day.
Thank you.
We'd like to call Carol Max. I think, Your Honor, I had 2 rebuttal witnesses. If Arlene was here, my understanding is they're not going to present her. I don't know that right this moment I feel I need those 2 witnesses.
All right.
So I'm trying to knock these last ones out efficiently.
And you are doing an admirable job. Ms. Majala, was her last name spelled Maijala?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Please watch your step as you step down. Remain standing, face the court clerk.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated, ma'am.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Carol Marie Maddox.
And do you know Tonya McDowell?
I do.
Can you tell me how you know Tonya McDowell?
I initially met her when my son went into our program. I was a volunteer with her, and then I worked with her.
Okay. Are you working at Riverdale Inc. currently?
I'm working as an independent contractor right now, and I have done one job for them, I guess you'd say.
Okay. And what's your position as an independent contractor with them? What sorts of things do you do?
Oh, I mostly do the legwork as far as, rounding up documents, birth certificates, whatever's needed, death certificate, applications for Social Security, school records, all of that, kind of putting the initial together. And in the past, when I worked with them too, I do case management and stuff.
Okay. Let me ask you, are you owed any money by Rivendell Inc. or Tonya McDowell?
Actually, I guess you could call it owed money. I extended a line of credit to the company.
And when you say you extended a line of credit, how is it that you extended that line of credit?
How? I'm sorry.
How was it that you extended that line of credit?
How did I?
Did you give them cash?
Oh, no. It was a credit card that I had no balance on.
Okay.
And so.
And how much do you believe is owed on that credit card currently that's been charged by Rivendell Inc. or Tonya McDowell?
Probably between $7,000 and $8,000.
Okay. And is Mrs. McDowell or Rivendell Inc. making payments on that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and are they doing that in accordance with what you agreed to in that regard?
Yes.
Let me ask you, did Mrs. McDowell ask you for that money?
No.
And how is it that it came about that that money was loaned to her?
I freely offered it. I had an open line of credit that had no balance, and the company, you struggle with cash flow when you're young, and so we were at that point, and I said, hey, I had already had another credit account closed for non-use, so I'm like, here, let's use this,
And in your dealings with Mrs. McDowell, have you ever seen her take advantage of the money from the company? Have you ever seen her steal money from Rivendell Inc.?
No.
I have no additional questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Mahan.
One moment, Your Honor, please. You're currently treasurer. of
No, I am
the-
not.
May I finish my question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank
I didn't know you weren't done.
You are currently treasurer of Rohan Ranch, correct?
No, I resigned in October.
Why did you resign?
Because I resigned my position with Rohan Ranch and I found that I preferred being an independent contractor. And I had a family emergency also that made me not be able to put any time towards it. My father's been hospitalized since October, close to death several times, so I haven't really had the time to put to it.
Could you turn in the white exhibit book in front of you to exhibit Q, page 1?
Yes?
This is something that's already been admitted. It's a listing from the Nevada Secretary of State.
Uh-huh.
See on the bottom, it was printed 3/14/2000.
Hold on, counsel, it's not been admitted.
It's not been admitted. Oh, I'm sorry. Have you ever seen something like this before?
I believe I have. I'm sorry, I didn't bring my glasses. I didn't know I was going to be reading.
Are you familiar with what entity detail records look like when they come from the Nevada Secretary of State?
I believe I've seen them.
And does this appear to be what those are?
Honestly, I don't know. Like I said, I'm sorry, I didn't bring my glasses. I didn't know I'd be reading.
But it is your statement under oath today that at this moment, you are not treasurer of Rohan Ranch.
I actually have my letter of resignation available.
And Ms. McDowell knows you've resigned?
Of course. It was.
And is your son still in her program?
Oh no, he left the program in 2009. He left to move into a security apartment, and we just worked with him on an outpatient basis.
Do you work for any other people or companies right now other than Rivendell?
Actually, no, that was my plan to do that, but like I said, the Monday after my resignation became effective, my father fell out of a tree in my front yard, and he's been gravely ill and is still hospitalized.
And so how much time right now do you spend in an average week in terms of hours working for Rivendell?
Oh, I don't. I mostly do it on a per-case basis. And so I think I bill them for 20 hours.
20 hours in an average week or every week?
Oh, no. Just, it was a one-time. It was a one client, one time.
So at this time, you're not having an ongoing you're not working for her at this time?
Not right now. I don't have any jobs with her right this moment, no. I have sent several referrals to her, to the program.
I would request that plaintiff's exhibit Q be admitted.
I don't think this line is properly authenticated, Your Honor, and we would object.
There hasn't been authentication, she can't even see the document.
I can go grab my glasses. I did bring them. Sorry I didn't bring them in.
I would just say on the basis that the exact same records for the other companies were admitted and that, well,
I did bring a copy of my resignation dated and sent to,
I'm sustaining the objection.
I have no additional questions for this witness, really.
All right. May we excuse the witness then? Ma'am, you may step down and you can go about your day. You're excused. Thank you.
What's your step, please?
I believe we have no additional witnesses at this time.
All right. Ms. Mahan, any rebuttal?
Your Honor, I think I do have just a little bit, and I'm wondering if we could take a brief break after we decide when to start closing arguments? Just a 5-minute break.
We can take a break so that you can get your notes together. Who are you calling in rebuttal?
I believe I'd be calling my client.
All right. Let's go ahead and do that.
And then, okay, so 5 minutes? I mean, how long is our break? Oh, you mean you call him now?
Call him now, and then we will break so that you can prepare for closing argument.
Oh, no, I understand what she's saying. Let me just think of it.
That's dreadful when your client is explaining to you what's
Yeah, I
going
know.
on.
I think we're fine here. I'm not going to call any rebuttal.
All right, then let's do this. I'm going to give each side, how long do you think you'll need for closing? You've been making your arguments all...
I think I can do mine in 5 to 7 minutes, maybe even less.
Okay.
About the same, 10 at the most.
All right. Then, because this is what I would like to do, I'm going to give you time to do your closing. I'm going to want to take about 5 minutes to get my notes in order, and then I'll come back and give you a ruling. All right? Let's go ahead. We'll be in recess until 4:15, and we'll start right at 4:15. Thank you.
All rise.